I am a licensed mental health counselor and a relationship sex therapist, and I specialize in intimacy in all forms, sexual, self, spiritual, relationship, communication, emotional. And I try to provide that to my clients to help them in not only relationship issues, but also in dealing with mental health issues. Communication is very important because with communication, that is your way of exploring and expressing your needs and wants. So your partner can actually hear it, and truly very good communication also requires you to be able to hear your partner needs and wants also.
It's interesting that you bring this up, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on this because obviously we're from Live Jasmine, and one of the things that I've noticed, especially in the members, one of my hypotheses of why they keep coming back to the site and why they spend so much time and so much money on the site is because for them, it has become this almost safe space to talk about their sexuality, to talk about their fantasies, to talk about their needs, wants, and desires. The platform itself is designed to be accepting and non-judgmental of those topics. That's actually one of the main reasons my thought that members keep coming back and again spending so much time and money.
Right, of course. When people are able to speak their truth without feeling judged and speak what they want without this judgmental aspects, then they feel freer and they want to come back and they want to communicate and they want to talk. So a safe space is wonderful because that also, for some people who may be a little bit shy, that builds up the confidence, and then also when you're able to say this in an atmosphere with non-judgmental people, then it's also practice space that you can truly say to your intimate partner.
Yes, and I've certainly heard that as well when I've interviewed members that they had a fantasy that they thought was uncommon, and so they were afraid to open up to a partner about it and request it. But once they kind of acted it out with a model and had a positive experience, they felt confident to talk to a partner about what it is they're interested in and seeing if they can deepen that relationship by exploring it together.
Yes, yes. And I'm glad you also brought up that other part of being with other people in the sense of talking helps people realize that they're not the only one.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm curious, what led you to this career path?
Well, actually, I worked as an accountant when I was much younger after uh, graduating from my bachelor's degree. And with accounting, it's the same old thing every day. It's the same, well, once a month, it's the same old thing. Okay. Yeah. And it got kind of boring. And I felt like I needed to do something different. And I'm also a very spiritual person. So I felt my higher power telling me to quit my job. And then I had a kid and I did all that. And then when it's time to go back into the workforce, my higher power told me to go into counseling. And I was like, no, I don't know. I don't like people. But I was like, okay, I'm just going to give it and I'm going to try. And I tried and I did mental health in school and worked in the schools for a while and did some mental health, of course, my background. And then later on, as I'm, working throughout the years, my inner experience has, well, now it's time for you to become a doctor. And I was like, oh, I don't know. But I said, okay, go with it. Then kept talking. Now it's time for you to be a sex therapist. I was like, really? No, I don't know. Yeah. And so in between that, and as a sex therapist, we learn about a variety of stuff. But I feel like my focus is on the intimacy of sex, the intimacy of spirituality, the intimacy of self, the intimacy of partner. And when you have all of that together, plus emotional communication, it is like, wow, the amount of excitement, the amount of joy of fully, truly being seen and exploring and being fun is just amazing. So I really want to share that with the people I work with.
What did you get your doctorate in?
Counseling psychology. Yeah, yeah. And at the time, I focused on anxiety. Yes, and because also, I mean, even in the sense of sexual intimacy, many times I work with people who have trouble in the bedroom,
Mhm.
you know, and a lot of time it's anxiety. It's what means is that they have so many thoughts going on in their head, whether it's, oh my gosh, I don't know if I look right, or something from trauma, you know, of maybe abuse from before, or oh my gosh, am I pleasing my partner? All of that. And sometimes I say it's like they have a coach here on the side, and they're like having this communication with their coach while they're trying to, make love or be with an intimate partner. And if you're doing all of that, that distracts you from being truly present. You know what I'm saying? Your body's there, but you're not there. And then you're wondering why there's ED happening, or, maybe I'm not as, excited or what or whatever. It's because of this right here. So learning how to shut that down, to shut down the brain, basically, to be truly, fully present.
It's interesting because one of the things that members most commonly say to me on what they're getting out of the service is they say, well, it's stress relief. And I
Yes.
think that what you're describing right now is part of that, that somehow they become so enveloped in that what they're engaging in that they forget about all the stress from work and all the stress from their family or whatever the case is. And they're just in the moment. And that is so relieving I mean, that's why I meditate, to be honest. Like,
Yes.
I love that feeling of just letting everything go and being so present. And there's so many ways that you can engage in that. Obviously, we just mentioned a few. For me, I meditate, and yeah, that feeling is very liberating. But like I said, members have told me that being on the site is kind of how they separate from whatever's stressing them for that period of time.
Right. And so is definitely a stress reliever. When I talk with couples about sex, I use it more as a playground. So the site that you have is also a playground. And when we play, I don't know if you remember as a kid, when you play, you really were just in the moment, enjoying what was there. You were able to be creative. Yeah. And so exactly what you said, it's a stress reliever when we play.
Absolutely. If there's one thing that already anyone listening can take away from this interview so far, it's to remember to play. And I think that in general, many societies all over the world have redacted the permission to play and the permission. And play is also very closely associated many times with pleasure, which we
Mm-hmm.
seem to have a problem with. Why do you think that we don't want people to indulge in pleasure or in play?
Well, I think it's this concept, especially here in the US, where we're just work, 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 work. We cannot take time for ourselves. It's like if you took time for yourself, it's like, oh my gosh, you're being selfish, you know, to just take time for yourself. And so, whether it comes from that mentality or also from just the spiritual aspect where you think you're just supposed to work and not have time to play. But spiritually, medically, psychology, they all say the same thing, which in the aspect of being fully present and relaxing is okay. It's okay to take time for yourself, And so, you mentioned one of the things I do a few things. I dance, I do improv. I love acting, so I do improv. And so all of this is play. And when you play, you're so creative. And it also gives your mind some rest time so that you are able to, when you need to focus, be able to focus. There's a joy behind all of it. The purpose of pleasure is also to heal. Yes, when we have pleasure, when we're excited, we release certain chemicals in our bodies that, of course, can relax us, of course, but it also, like if you have pain, it's known to take away pain. Yes. So pleasure is healing. It is connecting, which is what the whole, in the sense of spirituality, we're all connected.
Right.
Yes.
You know, within our organization and company, one of the things that I think is hardest on those within the company and the company itself to see is how stigmatized the industry is, how stigmatized the models are, how stigmatized and judged really anything or anyone that has a specialty in sexuality
Right.
becomes. Because exactly what you just said, which is that pleasure is healing, we have seen countless and countless and countless examples of this being true in not only the members' lives, but the models' lives. I interviewed a member who had suffered a severe heart attack, and one of the after effects of that heart attack now is that he very often gets severe anxiety and like anxious attacks. And he told me that there has not been one time, he has a particular favorite model that he sees often
Right.
and too often. He said there hasn't been one time that he hasn't been gone to her when this is happening and talked to her, and the anxiety didn't dissipate and go away.
Right.
Just that feeling of like someone's there for you. And like you said, that feeling of connection or pleasure
Right.
is so deeply healing. And so it's hurtful almost sometimes when you hear people saying, oh, like this is just about sex. And it's, almost as if it's like a dirty thing.
Right.
When it can be and should be, and we have seen it be so much more than that, and so like much deeper.
Yes. And sex wasn't just created for us to have babies or procreate. And I think that's another part that people think is that's what sex is only for. But sex is for pleasure, to help with pain. And so, and to relax and to connect, So I think sometimes people don't understand the concept of what sex really is. And those release of orgasms and just that feeling, that sense of, wow, that was wonderful. I made this person feel great. I feel great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Like someone
Yeah.
who has taken control of their pleasure, their sexuality, which goes against everything we're kind of programmed to do, and then is helping other people explore that part of themselves. Because like our message is not you should be super sexual or you shouldn't be. Our message is be who you are, and
Right.
whatever that is should be acceptable, as long as there's of course harm to none, right?
Right.
Consensual harm to none. Like everything else should be completely allowed and accepted and not judged. I'm curious if in your experience you have seen a recurrent theme that people struggle with when it comes to their sexuality and having a healthy and whole sexual life. Like, is there a particular block that you've noticed happens a lot in people?
So one of the things that I see common is that, and I'm going to talk from a female's perspective, is that some females don't really know their bodies. And they enter into relationships, marriages, or whatever, and they expect their partner to know. But they haven't truly explored their own body. And so it's different as females grow up and males grow up in some families where male genitals are out. So they've gotten familiar with it and that kind of stuff and can name it and all that. Females, not so. We're taught not to touch, not to look, you know, don't let, yeah. And so when you're entering into a relationship, then you expect, oh, well, he's supposed to know what to do. Or they get frustrated and they're like, well, he's not doing what I need, or he's not XYZ, because they don't know how to initiate, or a variety of things. So that's one of the things that I see that is just real common in the relationships. Number two is stress. Okay. When stress happens, there's some people who are accelerators, like they want more touch, they want more excitement, they want more, interaction, while others have the break. Like when they're stressed, they don't want to be touched. And so when you have a breaker and accelerator in a relationship, and the breaker is, breaking, and the accelerator is trying to go, and there's no communication, then it becomes like, oh my gosh, my partner really doesn't see me for me. Yes.
It's interesting that you brought up just female anatomy, because I was having a conversation with someone not too long ago, and they were saying, a lot of women get this idea that there's something wrong with them because they don't have an orgasm just from regular missionary sex.
Right.
And the reason for that is because there aren't tons and tons of nerve endings in just the vagina.
Right.
And if there were more, childbirth would be unbearable. But we have an organ that is full of just nerve endings and is literally, as far as we can tell, is only for pleasure.
Right.
But because we're so skittish around this topic of sexuality, we haven't been taught, yeah, this is where you go for your orgasm,
Right.
and so we have people thinking there's something wrong with them. Maybe, their partner's thinking, wow, I can't please this person.
Right.
And the woman thinking there's something wrong with me. And it's just not even close to true in many cases.
Right, definitely. And for men, on the flip side, one of the things that I hear a lot is that my partner isn't really into me. And men they're visual people, so they get excited about what they see. And they sometimes feel like maybe some women, or their woman, get excited about what she sees. But women are different. Most women are different. There is an emotional piece. Yeah. Yeah. So I explained to in my, dealing with couples, that just like you get excited about her boobs, her tits, and all that, women get excited about if you explain how you're stressed, your emotional concerns. You know what I'm saying? How are you feeling today? That's what starts to get the juices flowing there. So it's all about kind of that first thing that you said, communication.
Absolutely. And to that point, I'm telling you, some of these relationships on Jasmine are 10 years, 15 years. It's not uncommon that I interview a member and they really kind of stick to one or two models, and they have these relationships for 10, 15 years. And I think it's because you have to communicate so clearly in order to get what you want, that foundation of clear communication builds these lasting, unbreakable bonds.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's how you connect. Yes, because what you don't want to do is to do something that you don't feel like doing, or that's not your authentic self. Because what happens is the body keeps score. The body remembers everything. So if you force yourself, even if you love the person, to have sex but you really didn't want to, the body's going to remember that. And it builds up and builds up. So like you said, the communication is critical.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious if there's any research that you've seen that just really has stood out to you throughout your career as so fascinating and interesting.
I guess kind of how going in this process, just the impact of true intimacy on mental health. Yes. When you're like solely, even, I'm just going to talk about yourself. When you're truly intimate with yourself and you feel comfortable in your own skin and in touching your own body and loving your arms and all other parts of you, do you know that can decrease your anxiety and depression by 25 to 50%? Just
That's
you, yes, yes, you just being comfortable with yourself. So, can you imagine how it is being comfortable with a partner?
that's
Yes,
significant. That's
yeah,
very significant.
yes, yes. So, that's kind of why I'm in this business.
Is to help people get comfortable with themselves, which then leads to being comfortable with others, maybe.
Yes, yes, to help people be comfortable, truly intimate with themselves, with their partner, with their higher power. Put
I
all
yeah.
three in that. Yeah, it's like boom. Yeah.
I love that you include that other piece.
Yes. Yeah, because um that gives you the purpose. Yeah. Why am I here? What is my purpose?
Right.
And we all have different purposes, guys. Your purpose may not, yeah, your purpose is not the same as your neighbor next door or your sister or your brothers. So stop comparing. We all have different purposes. And we all have to have different purposes because there are many different people in this world. So just because someone else is doing maybe the same thing you're doing, don't get jealous of that person because different clients, different people appeal to different people. So, yeah, one of the other things that I mainly do is I help other clinicians have their own private practice. Okay, so yeah, yes. And so I have all these people in my practice, but I don't look at any of them as competitions. We just don't, because who appeals to you may appeal to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So, going back to the whole point of purpose, yes, each person has a unique purpose, and you're on this earth for a reason.
It's so true. This mathematician once, I was at a lecture, and this guy, the real mathematician, broke down the actual odds of what it takes to be born on Earth. And it's like 1 in 4 trillion or something. Like it's like your odds of actually being born here, it's actually very low. So for that to happen, you have to understand that was kind of the point of the talk. Like for the odds to go through and you make it, like what it takes. We don't really think about that because we're here, we see babies born all the time. But when you really get into the science of what it takes, the odds are against you to be born completely. And if you make it, you have to understand that nature wanted you here for a reason.
Right, right. And it's so important. I mean, I haven't said this, but I say it a lot. It's so important not to say negative things to yourself because you only have one body. You can't really, you can modify a little bit, but you really only have one body. You cannot divorce yourself. And it does damaging when you say negative things about yourself. And then it does damaging when you say negative things about your body, even if you're like, well, I'm a few pounds overweight or whatever. But when you put your body down, then you're asking your body to work for you. It's like, you just call me a name and now you want me to work for you. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. You got to be all together. You got to be unified, body, mind, spirit. Be good to yourself. Don't say anything negative about yourself. Of course, we all make mistakes. I make mistakes every day. But I just say I'm a work in progress and I move on. Yeah.
Yeah, aren't we all? Beautiful. If there was one thing that you could, if there was one message that you could give to everyone in the world about their human sexuality, about connection with others, what would that message be?
To be present. Yes. And what I mean by being present is when you are wherever you are right now, being fully aware of your environment, who you're with, and truly connecting, not having the agenda of what's in the next hour, what's, in the past or what's coming up in the future, being truly connected. Because when people are truly connected, and even in the sense of sexuality, that connection, it's like it's right there. So it's such a magnified connection that it can truly um, provide such amazing pleasure and feelings and healness. And you actually do heal when you're truly present and not in the past or the future.
Mhm. Absolutely. Um, do you have any clients who use campsites or use some form of transactional sex work?
Currently, at this moment, I don't. I've had one or two, but currently, at this moment, I don't.
I'm curious your thoughts on that dynamic of a transaction. I mean, when I think about it, we all pay for our needs every
Right,
day,
right,
right?
right,
We eat food, we need food, we pay for
right,
food. Some people need connection and intimacy and
right.
they pay for it. I'm curious what your thoughts are on things like camming or that transactional experience of needing connection and you're willing to pay for it.
So I have the few that I've had have been individuals who are maybe very shy in some aspect. Let's put it that way. Yes, yes. And so that connection helped them gain confidence and connecting so that later on, or even for some, I mean, they're satisfied with that, that it's been helpful for them because they are able to truly be them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, that's when you mentioned some of them are shy. Most members I interview, they describe themselves as very shy people. So that is really interesting that that particular dynamic, or I'm sorry, that particular demographic is one really gravitates towards this type of relationship.
Right. I was just thinking the sense as I'm talking through this. If you're an introvert, you get energy from within, and you really, and I'm an introvert also. Um, so small groups, one-on-one connection, which is what I love, one-on-one connections, those are comfortable for you. When you're in large groups, and I can't do large groups, but that like pulls so much energy from me, you know? While extroverts really like to be out there, you know, with people, lots of people, that's how they get their energy. So I can see how, of course, for people who are more introverted, and we're in a realm, we all have different realms. So yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, and models have told me this, members have told me this, it almost becomes social practice
Right.
because it's the safe place to. I've had models tell me that they kind of coach some of their members on what to say to a woman. What if you see a woman that you think is beautiful and you want to ask her out? Well, how do women like to be approached in general, and so that they're comfortable and they'll really kind of coach these men
Yes.
on what to do. It's really interesting.
Yes. Yeah. And it gives them the sense of, oh, I'm talking to another female. So I'm hearing it from a female perspective versus, talking to my guy friends, or, yeah, or vice versa, women friends. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot more I don't want to say meaningful advice, but yeah, you know what I mean? When
Yes,
when you're getting the advice from the target. So to
yes,
speak, yeah.
exactly.
Is there anything about your work or human connection, human sexuality, even mental health that we haven't touched on, but you want to share?
Um, I guess the retreat part. So besides regular counseling, I do bring couples together on retreats. And I do have one couple at a time for those couples who don't want to be involved with other couples or whatever. And in that, I not only just strictly doing regular talk therapy where you're sitting on the couch spilling out your guts, I also involve a lot of play. So we do a lot of playing, even in the sense of using Legos, coloring, scarves. I do drama. I mean, do a variety of different things because when you play, you're able to truly just get down to the authentic self. And that also allows you to heal. So, yes.
Beautiful. Like we touched on earlier, that pleasure, that play is deeply healing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. So I find that, and I enjoyed myself, to see a couple that comes to me and they're sitting far away from the couch. And then by the end of the retreat, they're like playing tag or whatever, they're touching, they're having that full connection. It's just really, really exciting.
I love that. Yeah, you just mentioned you'll get a couple that's sitting far away and instantly it's like, okay, I got a project here, and by the end you see them come back together. That's really beautiful.
Right, right. Because it's so important to have fun. And sometimes couples or people even they get disconnected from themselves because they're so busy, and we don't take time to truly enjoy ourselves. And it's okay. Yeah.
And that's when I started this project, this whole interview project that I've done, now interviewing hundreds of experts, models, members, has really even changed me and how much
Mhm.
I've learned. And one of the biggest realizations I've had is how little we're able overall in society to nurture or know this part of ourselves that has to do with sexuality, creativity, pleasure, and play. And yet, we know from research that this is just as primal and necessary as any other part of ourself. So many of us are so cut off from an aspect of who we are, and it shows.
Play can look different for a lot of different people. I mean, for some people, play is maybe reading a book with someone. I mean, that's their exact. Others like video games, or also, a variety of other things. But when you truly, truly are playing and in the moment, you don't necessarily need any type of other enhancement. Because sometimes when people use other things such as alcohol, all that other stuff, it blocks you from truly feeling all the excitement.
Right.
Right.
It's almost like it's almost like you think you're getting that moment of play, but you're not really. It's kind of a manufactured moment. It's not truly coming from within you. You know what I mean? It's been induced.
Right, exactly. And then for many people, it just drops them and they feel worse afterwards. Yeah, but some people in the beginning, they think I cannot have fun unless I do this, do that. Then maybe that's not the same for you to have fun.
Mhm.
If you feel like I can't have fun, somewhere unless I have cocaine or other substance, then maybe that's not the same. Maybe that's not your authentic self.
Right. Yeah. Why? I love that. It's like start questioning, well, why do you feel like you need that in that environment? Maybe you're not comfortable there.
Right,
It's interesting too, because yeah, when you think about play, who are the play experts? It's children, right?
right, exactly.
Children are the experts when it comes to play and pleasure. They'll take markers and color on the wall. And it's like, why did you do that? Because it felt good. I
Yeah,
wanted, they follow what feels good.
right,
And they're not naturally inducing themselves with chemicals, right? So that
right,
tells us that we actually don't need chemicals to have tons of fun and play because the experts at it don't need that. So yeah, we've kind of gotten confused about what we need or don't need for pleasure because we've come so far from that part of ourselves. I think
right.
that does know how to play and yeah.
Hmm. Yes, yeah. I think many times people get in that loop and they rely on those things because um, this world can be bad in some aspect, and bad things are going to happen to everybody. But some people get stuck and they have trauma, you know. But instead of just like pleasure, going through that pleasure, sometimes you have to go through the pain to heal.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Just even in my own life, obviously, when I was younger, I think it becomes at some point you want to avoid pain. I mean, that's I think a survival instinct, right? We want to avoid pain. But sometimes the healing is in the processing and feeling of that pain. And, it wasn't until I got permission from people to know it's safe to feel whatever you're feeling, it's safe to
Right.
feel experience and go through it. Then I allowed myself to really feel things that were painful. I mean, that is part of the human experience. It's not all like sunshine and rainbows as far as feeling wise. And I think that potentially where people start using chemicals is because sometimes, perhaps, I don't know for sure, but my
Yeah.
guess is that they want to numb out the feelings that aren't just all good. And that those feelings are, they're part of the human experience. I was thinking of this movie scene in Troy, but it's such a good scene. I know it's a movie, but it's so real and so true. And basically, I think one of the things he was saying was one of the beautiful things that human beings have is that they feel so deeply and that it's all over the spectrum. And he says that the gods envy humans for that.
Yes.
It makes our experience so beautiful because A, it's quick, and B, we feel it all so deeply and so intensely. And I think that that is the human experience. And once we give ourselves permission to
Mhm.
feel all, life becomes better. You know what I mean? It does.
Yeah, because when we don't give ourselves permission, we limit the capability of how we feel. You know what I'm saying? So we can maybe only feel, a little bit happy, but we can't get to that full joy. You know what I'm saying? We just limit on both sides. So when you're able to fully express, yeah, it's just amazing.
Beautiful. I've really enjoyed this interview. My final question to you would be from your experience and your perspective, what are our next steps collectively or individually in creating a more sexually well society?
I guess our next step would be to fully focus on the aspect of truly being intimate,
Mm.
which means being able to authentically show up for yourself. And if you're with a partner or someone online, authentically showing up for that person.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. And actually, just one more question. is for someone listening who's like, I don't know, someone listening who maybe has realized they have gotten so far away from that part of themselves that is playful, that knows their pleasure, that can be intimate with themselves or a partner, what would you say is just a first baby step for them to move?
Okay, so one of the baby steps that they could choose on my website, draprilbrown.com, draprilbrown.com, you can take an intimacy quiz. There's one for yourself and there's one if you have a partner to see where am I at all these different types of intimacy. And do I have a deficiency? Are there things I need to work on? Then once you know that, then you can really say, hey, how can I truly start to show up for myself or show up or emotionally be able to express myself or be able to communicate, or all these different forms of intimacy. So I think that's one thing that I would love any of your listeners to go fill out the form. Yeah, and see what your results are and work from there. I do also have a series of books that go along with that. But the first step is knowledge, your awareness.
That temperature. I think I'm going to take the quiz myself, see where I am. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time today and participating in this project. We really, really appreciate it.
I thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.